何？お前はもう死んでいる。
Alright, let's go on to verse 6.
Rejoice and not in iniquity, but rejoice in the truth. I guess that means like iniquity ain't that like sin. Right. Okay, don't rejoice in like, yay, I just sinned, yay, I just cheated on my wife. But like rejoicing like, ooh, I love you, baby. Baby, I love you.
And you still fucking on a relationship, man. What is wrong with you?
I agree.
I wasn't going on.
It seems like Brother Brandon is in love over here.
Nobody love nobody.
You keep.
What you talking? What said love?
Are you okay?
I'm fine. What are you talking about?
About her?
Who is her?
I mean, we can turn the cameras off. You want to talk about this?
No, I don't want to talk about it.
Look at that laugh.
Oh man.
That ain't cute.
And the honest truth. Thank you.
Good job, Brandon. I'm proud of you. All right, well, let's go on to verse 8. And y'all, that's wrong with black folk. Y'all don't support one though.
Beareth all things, believe in all things, hope in all things, endure all things.
So this verse kind of reflects upon verse 4, you know, with love is patient. So when it's saying endure all things, that means you're going to withstand.
Withstand anything.
Yep, and you're going to be patient throughout it and being hopeful that things will get better. Just say,
Okay, so I don't keep it. What if you love them, but you don't love them?
what you mean?
Okay, I'm not saying I'm going through this. Cause no,
Yeah.
Saying, how
Like
can
Brandon, yeah.
Yeah. How can you, I mean, you can love them, but you can't love them the way that they love you.
I know about that.
It's in home.
That's you ain't going through it now.
So just saying, like, are you referring to relationships or
All of the above.
all the above? Okay. Well, regardless, love is still love, but I know that there are different magnitudes. Like somebody can be in love while the other person can just love. Yeah, most people like to say that. But still, regardless, we still should treat people with love. And if you're referring to relationships, then we should let that person know. And if it happens to be that your feelings are deeper than theirs, or if yours is not as serious as theirs, still let them know. I know I've been there too, with falling head over heels while the other person is still not even looking at a heel.
I think you're Marvin.
Well, actually, I'm Johnny.
So
They're tripping on their heels.
So yeah, it goes back to that road runner situation, trying to chase something that you'll never get.
That's what I'm saying.
But thank you for the question, lady.
I'm here, Sister Walker. But as I look back over my life,
Sister Nikki.
that's Sister Nikki. That's Sister Walker.
He's talking about the beginning of my testimony. As I look back over.
You ain't got
Okay.
But you know, I've been through the same thing and still going through the thing. They can love you way deeper than you love them. But you know what? There's always a light at the end of a dark tunnel. That's right.
Amen.
I give good advice.
Right.
You can't take your own advice.
That's the hard part.
That's the hard part.
You can always help somebody else.
But you can't help yourself.
Amen. Go ahead, Brad. You better preach over here.
Thank you. Say what?
You better preach.
I ain't about to preach. I get tired of preaching.
Love never fails, but whether there are prophecies, they will fall. Whether there are tongues, they will cease. Whether there is knowledge, it will vanish away.
Love make you stupid.
Bruh.
Sometimes love do make you stupid. I feel like that's what
Did you just add to the scripture? You're not supposed to do that.
I was just saying, you know, when I take on the love do make you stupid sometimes. It really does.
Love can't make you look stupid.
It will blind you.
You heard yourself out there?
Where is that?
I mean, it ain't got to be saying.
Show me where it says love maketh thou stupidest.
Love is always going to be love. Things are going to fade away. To me, when it says about the knowledge, what comes to my mind is like when you get older, as you get older, especially like when you become an elderly person, then, you're going to start forgetting things. But that, love is still always going to be love. I'm just saying, is that right? Is that what it's saying? That love is always going to stand and when other things fade away? I don't know.
But yeah, it basically goes back to the initial sentence in verse 8. Said love never fails. And to my prophecies and like people speaking against it and stuff, and if the love is there, love is going to withstand all of that. As long as the love is there, that's all that matters.
I'd rather be broke but have happiness than be rich and lose it all. Y'all read it?
Just like that quote that Bob Marley said.
Are you a rich man?
When you mean rich, what you mean?
You have a lot of possessions?
Position make you rich? I don't have that type of richness. My richness is life.
Money can't buy you happiness.
No, it can't. No, sir. But thank you, Vanessa. Sister Vanessa. All right. So the next question I ask is, how important love is to God? That question is answered back in Matthew's in a situation that Jesus was facing. And so let's go to the book of Matthew in chapter 22. The setting here is that Jesus is being basically interrogated by the people because there are a lot of people who didn't necessarily credit Jesus for having the power that he stated that he would have. They just figured Jesus was this normal man, and with all these miracles that they heard he's done, they just patronized him. And so in Matthew 22 and 36, we'll see that they asked Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? Bless you. And so they asked him, what's the greatest commandment? Do y'all remember the commandment?
Thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not bear false witness, thou shalt not fornicate.
What about steal? Thou shalt not steal.
Thou shalt not
Everybody go through this whole thing?
5 minutes later.
But with numbering things in the Bible, when God stated like how many of something, you'll notice that he puts the most important thing first. And the first one he placed was basically worshiping God only. Jesus basically answered this person who was patronizing him with this. And so let's take a look.
Master, which is the great commanded in the law?
All right, in 37.
Jesus said unto him, thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind.
38.
This is the first and great commandment. It was already loud.
何？お前はもう死んでいる。
And the second is, like unto it, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself.
And so Jesus, like I said, he's being patronized because who's coming up to him is a lawyer. And lawyers, as they are now, they go to school and they had to learn all this stuff. And back then, it was required of a lawyer to know the law, which was the Old Testament. When he approached Jesus, he was patronizing him. All the Sadducees and all them, they were ridiculing Jesus. And so they were like, teacher, what is the greatest commandment? And he stated that you should love God. And the next is loving your neighbor as much as you love yourself. So we see how important love is to God. Love is a vital part in obtaining salvation. In order to be a true Christian, what is the definition of a Christian?
Holy.
No.
Somebody who loves God and treats others.
That's okay. But like the official definition of a Christian.
I'll look it up.
Believes in one,
Don't worry about looking it up. I'll tell you.
the one God preaching.
No.
It's someone who claims to be a follower of Christ.
So when you're following Christ, you have to be like Christ. Or like the channel. ChristLike. Yeah. All this is basically saying not to do something to someone that you wouldn't want done to you or you wouldn't do to your own self. So it's basically the golden rule: treat others the way you would want to be treated. Don't allow the devil to enter your mind and cause harm to someone else when you know that you wouldn't do it to your own self. Don't say negative things to someone that you wouldn't want said to yourself. So that kind of reflects on the status I made like yesterday or so when I was speaking on like mass shootings or any kind of violent act. Is basically a lot of these people who do these things, what's the common thread? They've been picked on. They're feeling depressed and everything, and it all boils down to how they're being treated at school, at work, whatever. So you all just be mindful of how you conduct yourselves in public, you know, because you might be in the face of somebody who's having a breakdown on inside, and this dog is getting hurt.
He's agreeing.
He's probably being harassed. But
True.
jeez. We apologize if you all hear any barking. I think the dog is hungry. But
Give him a bone.
Get him some milk.
when I was a teenager, I carried a lot of pain and anger. I was upset with people who did me wrong, with people who I assumed did me wrong, and people I just didn't trust. I wanted them to hurt like I was. I wanted them to feel every scar that was burned on me. I had love, but the anger overshadowed the love. The issue I had was that I cared. And when people disappointed me, the anger and depression hit. And that in turn turned to anger and resentment towards them. In my chest, it used to feel like I was dragging a cinder block. That was all until I decided to let it all go and turn my life to Christ. Because loving people is far, I would say, easier than hating people. All right, let's take a moment, exercise our brains. I want you all to imagine a world where everyone treated each other with love. What are some things you would believe be present in this world?
I think enemies will be starting to become friends. Like you have more friends and everything, and people start like treating each other right. And you know, you will be a world with peace. World peace. When is a basketball player called World Peace?
Metal War Peace.
Metal War Peace.
What a disgrace.
You know what, Brandon? You know, sometimes your enemies can love you too.
Yeah, I always say keep your enemies, keep your friend close, keep your enemy close.
Because
This ain't
the
got to do with
enemy
it.
was once a friend. And
That's
just
true.
because the enemy, just because a friend turned to an enemy, that doesn't mean they still don't love you.
That's right.
Well, that can be applied to different situations because not all enemies were once friends.
People can hate you for nothing. They don't even like you.
Just like Jesus. They hated him without a cause.
Because somebody else can make somebody else hate you.
That's true too.
Like a whole crowd just come up and say, we all hate you.
Yep.
You got that
And
one
they don't even
friend.
know- and they don't even know you.
Like you got that one girl. I don't like her. Talk to another girl. I don't like her. Girl, I don't like her. I don't even know her. You don't see that like high school and stuff.
I feel like we wouldn't have as many laws and as many regulations because I feel like a lot of laws and regulations were put in place because of things happening, because of how people act. And if everyone loved and everyone treated each other with respect and loved themselves, love other people like themselves, we wouldn't have as many rules as we have and laws and stuff. We just wouldn't. I mean, yeah, but I'm talking about like, that's why I said I know certain ones.
You wouldn't have like killing.
It just wouldn't be so much crime rate going on now.
Right.
If it was love going on.
Right, but that's what I'm saying. But there are some rules, and even if it's not a law, just rules that have been put in place because of that, because the people loved each other.
Laws and rules would be put in place.
Y'all agree? I know what I'm talking about.
Wait. But I understand and I appreciate your words, but yeah, there was a time period where people used to just not lock their doors around and just go to sleep and stuff, but things have gotten crazier and you know. But yeah, there was a time period in life where everyone loved one another, but it was until somebody with two horns got in the middle. I'm referring to the devil though. Adam and Eve, you know, they were at peace and love and everything until he got in the midst, then caused them to sin, and the world just went on down after that. So we see now that all of that is just imaginary, and so we're back to the real world where there are rainy days, backstabbing friends, cheating partners,
Racism.
yep, demotions on the job.
You were this close to losing your
And whatever else that'll cause your spirit to feel depressed, to feel angry. It's called life. But even though these situations may seem negative, God's the author of our faith.
Why are you looking at me like yeah, you look suspicious.
If you see anyone suspicious, did you hear me?
Okay, sorry.
Bruh.
When these things happen, what is our mindset when these negative things happen? Do we stay on love, or do we negatively react to these situations?
I'm gonna give up.
You could do.
Everything I said. You're gonna get
And so we can kind of reflect on back to math with that. Negative plus a negative will be
A negative.
exactly. So these negative things, they do happen. These are the things that we wrestle with. And speaking of wrestling, in Ephesians chapter 6, we'll find out what exactly we wrestle with. We do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. Prior to that verse, Apostle Paul is telling us to guard ourselves with particular items. And I want you all to think of this. What does a soldier put on when going into battle? Well, no, just a general term for all that.
Suit.
Armor. So I want you all to think even more, like detail a person's armor, like in the battlefield, and the soldiers or knight, anything. What are some pieces of armor?
You got the chest plate.
Bulletproof vest.
Okay, keep going.
Shield.
That's not here.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you all for your input, but those are assets of armor, and we see in verse 14, that's where Apostle Paul begins to detail the armor of God. It says, stand for having girded your waist with truth, having put on the breastplate of righteousness, and having shod your feet with the preparation of the gospel of peace. Above all, taking the shield of faith with which you will be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked one. And take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Now, out of these verses, we see that the most important aspect of a person's armor is what?
Shield.
The important part is their weapon of choice. And so we see that God's weapon of choice is what?
The word.
Which is the sword, which is his spirit, which is also his word. And in his word, this right here, God emphasizes to us what characteristics a person should possess to yield his sword, which is his spirit. And we see that in Galatians chapter 5, verses 22 and 23, and this will be our last one.
But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, long-suffering, gentleness, goodness, and faith. Meekness, temperance, against such there is no law.
These are the fruits of the Spirit. These are characteristics that we should have. And the first fruit that you see, like I mentioned earlier, that God numbered things, and what he happened to place first was first for a reason. And so we see the first fruit is what?
Love.
So we see how important that is. And so we have that love, we have the most important fruit. And we have one of the most important parts of our armor, which is our weapon, our sword, that represent his spirit. Also, the Bible states is that a person knows a tree by the what it bears.
Bruh.
The fruit.
That is true though too.
So by the fruit it bears. And so regardless of what's happening to you and around you, continue to spread love. If we all decided to love instead of being angry, this world would be a better place. Thank you.